everybody, and welcome to this bonus episode of the Cinema Recall podcast. I am one of your hosts, the Vern. Unfortunately, my co-host Ashley could not join us today because she is busy working right now. We love her dearly. She'll be back on soon, I promise you. We have a special guest with us today. We'll get to him in a second here. If this is your first time listening to Cinema Recall, we're found everywhere. We are on YouTube, we are on Good Pods, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Podchaser. Please leave us ratings and reviews. We do have a Patreon page, patreon.com/cinemarecallpod, which you'll be able to find this episode before anyone else can. But our special guest this week is the event planner for with us right now, Mr. Daniel Abella. Hello, Dan. How you doing, buddy?
Hi, Vern. How are you?
It is so great to hear from you. Now, I've been to like a few film festivals before, but nothing as unique as the Psychedelic Film and Music Festival. And I just want to touch just really briefly on that. Like, how did this whole thing get started? Like, just tell, what were the basis of doing this?
Sure. We've been running the Phillip Film Festival since 2012. And this is a festival that focuses specifically on science fiction. But on occasion, we also have documentaries that are adjacent to psychedelic or imaginal states. So back in 2018, was it 2018 or... Yeah, I think 2018. We ran a documentary featuring Dennis McKenna. Now, for those who are not familiar, Dennis McKenna is the brother of Terence McKenna, who is you could consider a kind of a psychedelic leader or influencer back in the 90s. He kind of through his amazing elocution and his grasp of the psychedelic universe, he was able to essentially revive or reinvigorate the whole psychedelic scene. And his brother, Dennis McKenna, is in his own right is an author, an ethnobotanist, and a pharmacologist. So unfortunately, Terence passed away. So you could say that his brother has continued to pass the torch, and he's essentially the go-to person for anyone dealing with the McKenna heritage. Now, we did a documentary, and we spoke afterwards to Dennis about it, and he suggested, hey, so at first I was kind of taken aback because it's psychedelic. Yeah, does that mean about the whole festival focusing on psychedelic substances and goods and bads of it? No. He said psychedelic films can cover a full range of experiences. So at that time I thought, yeah, that's right, because I've always been interested in the films that are kind of far out, such as anyone who's familiar with the works of Alejandro Jodorowsky, El Topo,
the I've seen a few of his.
The Holy Mountain, even more recently, Gaspar Noé, Enter the Void. So yeah, it's kind of Altered States, for instance, with back with Ken Russell, directed by Ken Russell. So I thought, come to think about it, yes, I could see that happening. I mean, I could see us putting together a festival. So there we are. 6 months later, we organized our first Psychedelic Film Festival. And we were lucky enough to have Dennis as kind of the representing the festival, because that year he was not in Canada, so he happened to be at a nearby conference, so he was able to attend the festival for a couple days. So 6 years later, here we are. I mean, on our sixth season, promoting all sorts of films dealing with altered states of consciousness. A lot of people think, is that going to mean just like some kind of retro hippie stuff where you're just... part of our goal is to sort of dispel the idea that it's just about old school psychedelics. It's about new school psychedelics, which can mean anything from chanting, drumming, meditation. Psychedelics in the original definition is basically that's what's reflected to the mind. Only the ingestion of psychoactive substances.
That's a great thing you said there, Dan, because when you talk to anyone about any type of psychedelic films, they are thinking that oh, it's a movie that you have to take drugs to or in order to enjoy them, and that's just not the case at all with a lot of these features on there. And you happen to
Right.
have like a lot of great documentaries and features that do give people a better sense of being when you watch them. Because I try to show my friends a few films that are psychedelic, like you mentioned, Enter the Void and Alter States, and
Right.
you say to them, or even the Neon Demon. I'm saying this is a movie that you just have to just sort of like experience and just sort of like let it wash over you. Mandy
Exactly.
is another great example of a psychedelic film, and it's a movie that you just let like wash over you because it's got all these great colors and soundscapes to
Exactly.
it, and you're just sort of like just going along for the ride of it, and it's just such a great feeling, especially if you watch it in a big community center like a theater. I do just kind of want to touch briefly on some of the features that you have at this. One of them I saw here was a feature from Matthew Modine called "I Am What You Imagine," and
Exactly. That's
can
that's our East. Yes, it's an East Coast premiere,
okay,
and his producer reached out to us saying, "Hey, Matthew's a New York native, and he would love to have a festival like yours, show the East Coast premiere." So we took a look at it, and he says, "Yeah, it definitely sounds like it's the kind of film that is aligned with our vision." And sure enough, I think it's narrated by one of the Modines. I'm not sure if this is his wife or his daughter. I'm unclear of that. But it's very ethereal. In fact, one of the assistants in the film worked in 2001, Space Odysseys. So it
oh,
definitely
very
harkens
nice.
back to that kind of, yeah, that kind of transcendental quality. The film is very, like I said, it's very dreamy. And I couldn't help thinking that it's also a take on his own profession, an actor. I am what you
Oh,
imagine, right?
sure.
So I couldn't help but think, well, maybe Matthew was just thinking about that, but he also think about what acting means. And give me 1 second. I have to give me 1 second. I have to. Something is.
Sure. Well, while he's back there right now, I just want to give
I'm
all of our
sorry.
listeners. Oh,
I had
no worries, Dan.
I was I was boiling some not garlic but ginger, and I
Ginger,
could
okay.
smell it. It says time to. But
Oh,
so returning back to the issue, Matthew Modine. Hopefully he'll be available. He'll be present. I mean, I'm not sure how the current strike going to affect his attendance, but we're more than happy to show his film.
sure. All right. Well, that's pretty cool. I want to ask you just briefly though. Do you consider the works of Terrence Malick to be psychedelic films with a Tree of
Sure,
Life?
absolutely. I mean,
And
it's more subtle, but it's definitely like the Tree of Life, which
yeah,
the Thin Blue Line. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really like the Tree of Life. That was
oh,
a
same
period
here.
in time. Or even a film like the Fountain.
Oh,
The
Darren
Fountain,
Aronofsky.
directed Aronofsky. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and it deal with the Tree of Life and multiple time frames in the same dimension. It was very, very much along the psychedelic dimension.
Well, and I'll ask you too, Dan. Like, getting someone like Matthew Modine to be part of this is, a nice thing because he's a big Hollywood star from movies like Married to the Mob and Full Metal Jacket. But you also
Exactly.
feature a lot of other great features from other independent artists and filmmakers. And how did they find about this festival, or did you find them, or was it like a mixture of the two of people that brought
Well,
in
we
films
have
to this
various
festival?
platforms. Yeah, we have various platforms they can submit to.
Okay.
And we usually have a small team of reliable programmers that curate the films, including myself. I like to think that there's no one person who really runs the show here. We're all, in a way, practitioners of what we promote.
Sure.
And we're not just going and showing, but we walk our talk. So, yes, a lot of our programmers are in that area, whether it be psychedelic films or psychedelic substances like promoting or advocating the use of certain, in a safe way. So we all work together to make sure that we have a program that covers the full range from abstract films, surrealist films, psychedelic films, transpersonal films, psychedelic horror, psychedelic sci-fi. So we try to cover the full range of films.
Okay, so I have to ask, just because I'm a big horror and sci-fi fan, what do you think in your mind is the horror and sci-fi that you wanted to highlight most in the Psychedelic Film and Music Festival?
In our festival,
Yeah.
let me think here. In the horror, in the sci-fi, okay. There is one on the sci-fi. I think they're all great. So there's no one that's really that I would say is not worth a screening. But I watched two films. One of them was Dementia 29,
Okay.
and Dementia 29 is in the short film block, and it especially features this woman who has the ability to cause injury or cause someone's death. She's kind of a telepath. They don't show exactly how she does it, but I think where the psychedelic element kicked in is the use of colors.
Okay.
A lot of saturated colors, a lot of, and the pacing was almost very still. The focus was more on the character. So, and then there's another film. That was more on the sci-fi-ish, and the other film was believe is I forget now the name is. I believe it's Voices, or Hearing Voices. Sorry, and this is actually a kind of a documentary. The director overcame years of voices or schizoaffective disorder. She used to actually hear voices, and after work and I guess she basically the voices kind of like died down, and now she decided that she wanted to put together what it felt like to be in that experience, to have those voices. So it's almost like supernatural or horror, but again, the horror we have is not like slasher. It's more transcendental, supernatural, visionary horror. So I would say, yeah, here's Dementia 29.
That Hearing Voices one. Oh, good.
There's a third film that I also want to add. It's called Lux Chroma, Luxchroma. That's by a Malaysian director, and it reminded me so much of if Wong Kar-wai was to do a sci-fi film.
Oh,
that
nice.
Would be it. I really was immediately. It struck me. There's something about it reminds me of the various his earlier films.
Like I just knew like In the Mood for Love and Chunky Express
and The Mood for
from
Love, and which is the one where it has to do with a store, and they're always like going to the store. One look outdoor like food.
Is that Chunky Express? I don't know what Chunky Express.
That's it. Yeah. But
Okay.
It's so much in the way the pacing. I said this is really good. I mean, it's like it felt like if he was to do a real hard a sci-fi, that would be it. So yeah, I wanted to add that to the list. Lux Chroma.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, I love all these. I do like the Hearing Voices one. And it sounds like that filmmaker was trying their best to sort of like solve their own mental problems and whatnot with the use of this film. And I imagine they did use psychiatric medicine to help out with that as well, because I have read and seen reports about how psychedelic medicines can actually help people with sort of like brain disorders and dementia and whatnot.
I'm not sure how she resolved it, but it goes to show you that the creative impulse, it's one of the most effective way of dealing with a lot of the toxicity that exists in today's world. Especially when we spend so much time watching news these days, as the news is like non-stop negativity. So we really need to find a sanctuary within ourselves that we can retreat to, and because the news is basically fear porn. It's basically meant to keep you in a disempowered state. And part of our festival is to re-empower ourselves, because psychedelic films, some psychedelic agents, the one thing they all share in common is like they give us like they appear through the fog and we can see on the other side that there's something there awaiting for us. So that's why I like this, because it's very empowering to those who can appreciate the power of the creative imagination, like Carl Jung used to talk about. Get us out of this state that's imprisoned, which, by the way, Philip K. Dick talked about this. He called this state the black iron prison. And he thought it was a kind of parasite that, not a viral, but kind of a metaphysical parasite that had invaded our consciousness and is essentially keeping us under its yoke. And the one way to break out of that was through the process of creativity, whether writing or directing a film and so forth.
Well, that is a good segue, Dan, into the other festival that you do, which is the Philip K. Dick Festival, the European Philip K. Dick Film Festival. I had to make sure I put that on there. But I just want to ask you briefly here, before we get into the films at that festival, do you have a favorite Philip K. Dick adaptation that you put on in theaters?
And from theaters, okay. Well, I would say the two of them that really I liked. I think the best one. I mean, some people love Scanner Darkly. That was directed a few years back with Keanu Reeves. A lot. I liked it, but I wasn't too crazy about the rotoscoping. It kind of distracted me.
Okay. I love that. I thought it just added to the movie.
Some people love it. So, but I thought it was cool. I saw it, and then another film, but The Adjustment Bureau, starring Matt Damon.
Yeah.
I
forgot you did
thought
that.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good. I mean, that was fairly. It had that kind of mood, that kind of weird, and it turns out a lot of the best PKD films are not even based on his works, but inspired by his works, like The Matrix, or what's the one by Alex Proyas was called
Dark City?
Black City. Dark City. Yeah.
Yep.
That's
great
again,
movie,
Dark City and Adjustment Bureau are very close together. They have that same vibe, that these beings can walk through walls and abduct you. Pretty much what you hear today on the UFO circuit. And so what Philip K. Dick really was telling us, and the reason why we've done this festival for so many years, is that there is that defined line between science and science fiction is arbitrary. Sometimes the two meet, and you really cannot tell what's science or what's science fiction. And he liked to regard himself as a fictionalizing philosopher. But he used science fiction. He felt that science fiction was probably the best vehicle to get his ideas out. It would have been more difficult had he just stuck with drama or with more or contemporary stories. So he, during his life, most of the, except for the last few years of his life, people thought it was science fiction. Come on, it's like Pulp Fiction. It's like, who wants that? And he has been vindicated, though. He finally, I think he's part of the literary canon right now, and he's pretty much regarded as one of the top novelists. And for those who never read Philip K. Dick, I have a suggestion. Just like you've read James
I've read like
Joyce.
a few of his books.
Yeah, a lot of people say, well, it's kind of hard to follow, and that's the point. It's like his book is a kind of a drug experience. You see, if you read Asimov, in which I love, it's very straightforward. You don't get spaced out a little bit, but you read Philip K. Dick, let's say Ubik, after a while you start wondering, why am I feeling disoriented? And it really hit me that what he's really doing is a kind of stream of consciousness. Like, it's almost like his unconscious is reaching out to your unconscious. And that sense of dissociation of reality is exactly what he's shooting for. And so,
That's
because a lot of people say, I read Phillip, he's a terrible writer. But he's not. If you approach him like as a literary writer, like Abe, yes, he may be hard to understand. But if you approach it like you would say approach Ulysses, James Joyce's Ulysses, then you might, or Pynchon, right?
sure.
Gravity's Rainbow. Then you might say, well, I can appreciate that more. It's how is your angle. It's like Picasso. When Picasso, when he did his Cubist paintings, people said this is garbage. But they understood that he was trying to get a three-dimensional world in a two-dimensional canvas. So PKD is trying to do the same thing with writing. So
You see,
the film,
I've read, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and I was in the middle of reading A Scanner Darkly because I was a fan of the movie, never read the book before, and what you're describing about his writing style is exactly right, because he'll go into like long chapters and things that I'm just not quite understanding with characters, and I just got into it a little bit more. It's a different headspace, especially when reading Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which is way different than Blade Runner. I was not expecting that at all. I was not expecting how different that book is to that movie, which makes me appreciate the movie a little bit more and like the book just as well. And I love the fact that they are just so widely different from each other. And it's interesting to see what screenwriters David Peoples and Hampton Fancher picked out from that story and put into Blade Runner. And as well as they put elements from the book and put it into Blade Runner 2049. And I just find that absolutely fascinating about what the adaptation of books and whatnot. But what I asked you about the film festival, Dan, are these stories comprised from works of Philip K. Dick or inspired by his work? Are these like based on his short stories?
They're more inspired by the work. The Philip K. Dick estate basically has virtual ownership of all the stories.
Okay.
I think there are a few that are in the public domain, but most of them are under control. And every so often, we have had films that were approved by the estate and are based on his work, like the opening festival. We had Radio Free Albemuth, which is based on his work, and it was actually approved by the estate. It was directed by Paul Allen Simon, it's basically a faithful adaptation of the book. And then we've had other films. But generally they're more inspired. So the inspiration is that Philip K. Dick was aware about how technology has a very seductive way of controlling us, and we can become, if we're not conscious of that, we can become slaves of the technology that we so-called use. Very much like those people these days, they're glued to their iPhones, and they step onto a pothole and they break their leg, or they get hit by a car. It's like that kind of hypnosis is what Philip K. Dick warned us against. It's only going to get more extreme with AI kicking in. So Philip K. Dick advocated a kind of a partnership between humanity and technology, and that takes a lot of work. It's not something that I love this app and then just use it indefinitely. So we need to have a partnership so we don't necessarily fall under the spell of technology. So the technology is like a scaffold, but you can't identify the scaffold with the foundation. So I think a lot of his stories deal with ordinary people like you and I that are overwhelmed by what's happening in the world. They're a little bit, like the one thing about Blade Runner that I find is very aligned with Philip K. Dick's character is that these guys are not superheroes. They're not Tom Cruise. He actually gets beaten up by several androids, and he's always like sort of clueless. That's in a way your typical Philip K. Dick character in his story. So in that sense, I think the movie kind of carry the spirit. It's like, why is this guy getting always beaten up by people?
I would ask you too, Dan. Do you think like shows like Black Mirror is sort of like taking the mantle of Philip K. Dick a little bit and presenting those stories to a new audience, because that show deals with the dangers of AI as well as the benefits of AI in their shows.
Exactly.
And
Yeah, I think Black Mirror is a great. Is kind of the next. Is a one way the medium is incorporating some of his ideas. But one thing that's
sure.
important that separates the book from the movies, and I have yet to see anything that's really, except for maybe The Matrix, that really forces us to question our relationship with technology. So the book will often change your perspective, and you're able to then perhaps approach technology in a different way, in a more balanced way. Whereas the movies, including Black Mirror, are more morality tales. Oh, this
Okay.
was going to happen. This was going to happen. And we've been listening to morality tales for the last 150 years, since Twilight Zone, the original one, with
Yes.
or One Step Beyond with Rod Serling and the other fellow. But I think we got to actually go underneath that and create films that can really, like The Matrix, becomes not just a movie, but becomes now a framework through which we
There's a lot of
start
philosophy
questioning.
with the Matrix. There's a
Exactly,
philosophy that goes on with it.
questioning our reality, or so-called narrative that exists in the world. And I think what Philip K. Dick would have liked to have seen as a way to advance his work is to have those kind of films. And there are a few here and there. For instance, Inception. Inception was a bit like that.
Good one.
Yeah, because
or even,
honestly, one thing about it, yeah, with DiCaprio.
Yes, which is I know that Inception and Christopher Nolan. He said he took that idea of Inception from an anime movie called Paprika from Satoshi Kon.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that. Paprika. Yeah, I remember seeing. I never saw Paprika, but I heard some good things about it.
It's so good, so good. It deals with the woman who has a device that can go into people's dreams, and that device gets stolen, and she has to try and get it back. But doing so, she has to go into like dreams on top of dreams and whatnot. So, and if you watch a lot of the visuals in Inception, it's taken directly from this anime called Paprika.
Paprika. Well, there was a previous film, a few of them. One of them I remember back in the 80s was called Dreamscape.
Oh, yes, the Dennis Quaid.
Dennis Quaid, and the characters that go into other people. Yes, and the payoff is, I think it was the president. The president, and that was one thing that I found out about Inception that's a little weak, was that the character that played by DiCaprio, honestly, I could care less whether or not he gets caught or not. So what's the big deal? He's not like the president. The president, I mean, if he's under the spell of this other character, that means, possibly World War III. So I thought that was a one weak point with Inception, that the payoff wasn't high enough. That is, although you could say in that sense it was more close, it was closer to a PKD short story in that sense. But Inception is also another great, yeah.
Oh no, sorry, go ahead. I was saying, plus they left Inception very ambiguous, kind of like the same way as when you read a Philip K. Dick book.
Yes, exactly. So we're not sure are we still in that dream world or not. But this is the funny thing about Inception, is that it's something we actually do in real life. I've had dreams where in the dream I remember another dream I had previously. And when I wake up, I realize, in the dream I was dreaming that I dreamt something else. So that architecture, it actually is something we can actually explore in our own lives. For those who are interested in exploring the dream worlds, that there can be one embedded within the other,
Yeah, speaking of dreams, because we didn't mention A Scanner Darkly, which is directed by Richard Linklater. Before that, he did a movie called Witn Life, which also has to involve people in dreams, and especially lucid dreaming is what that film is all about. And it's funny too, because he adapted, the book from Philip K. Dick, A Scanner Darkly, but I always felt like Witn Life it fits more into his like philosophies a little bit. It felt more Philip K. Dick like in Wait in Life than A Scanner Darkly, even though it's taken directly from A Scanner Darkly. And I know they've had both Philip K. Dick's daughters, along with Keanu Reeves, on the commentary track, talking
on
about
the
A
Scanner
Scanner Darkly,
Darkly, right.
which is very fascinating. But I think Wait in Life, because it has Willie Wiggins from Dazed and Confused, and he's going through these scenarios with like different philosophers and artists and writers, and he's slowly starting to figure out that hey, he's actually dreaming. He's stuck in this lucid dream, and it's fascinating because I've had great lucid dreams where I know that I'm dreaming, and it's such a great thing to experience and whatnot. I did want to ask you too, Dan,
Yeah.
for the features at the European Film K. Dick Film
Oh, the
Festival.
only shorts though.
The shorts,
Yeah.
sorry, the shorts. Is there a representative of Philip K. Dick's works? Is there a certain one that you think audiences, when they watch this, they'll be able to say, "Oh, yes, that is taken from this story"? Or do you recognize any sort of
Oh,
similarities between the stories and the films?
Okay. There's one. Yes, there's one short. You always hit me with the hard questions, but
I'm
there's
sorry.
one short. It's by the director is Udesh Chetty, and
Okay.
boy, let me see. Udesh Chetty. Let me see if I can look him up because now I forget the name of the movie, but I would highly recommend seeing this film. Udesh Chetty is a director,
Whoa.
and he's from South Africa, and it essentially is about a android who is it seems like is the very last android on Earth or on this barren planet who begins to engage with their own sense of being. It's almost, you could say, she almost starts to becoming sentient, and she starts to review all the various esoteric traditions of the past, Taoism,
Oh.
Confucianism, Zen Buddhism, and it kind of comes to a conclusion of what it means to be human, because the android is trying to understand what it means to be human, why humanity disappeared. If you can look
Okay.
it up, you might be able to look it up on if you can on your end.
Yeah, I'm onto I'm on the website right now. What was the name of the
Yeah,
movie?
I
I'm
do think
looking
that that's.
to to see.
Let me see if I
Uh,
can find it on my own, because I do think this is something that
well,
the viewers would really appreciate. I was kind of like, really, let me see here. I was kind of taken aback by that.
Why, while
Uh,
you're looking that up, there is a recent movie that I saw not too long ago called Artifice Girl, or The Artifice Girl, and it's a small indie movie, and it deals with these computer programmers and FBI directors, and they invent this AI unit for this little AI girl to track online sexual predators. And they just create this little girl, and she's this smart, sentient being, and all she's programmed for is just for this one job. And soon she starts to develop a conscience, and she realized that she just doesn't want to just do that anymore. And one of the programmers wants to keep her as just doing that. And I think it's one
right.
of the best movies about AI
It, it,
works in
is
a
that on
while.
is that on the main screen or on Netflix?
That is on. I think I had a rent mine from Amazon Prime. I think it was. I think I had a buddy of mine just send me like a copy of it, but it was actually very well done. Um, Makerville After Hours.
Well,
The
it's
shit.
interesting that you. Let me see if I have it here. Okay, give me a second here.
Right.
Almost there. Yeah, and that's on Friday or Saturday. I'm here. Just a lot of it is okay. Megaville, New Air.
Yep.
Okay, Red Gaia. That's the name.
Oh, Red Gaia.
Red.
Okay.
Yes. Alone on a dying planet amongst the ruins of human civilization, one last android desperately guards the last essence of life, It's really powerful, and it's kind of it's not live action, but it was done in a digitalized, fantastic, really great. Uzdesh
Oh,
Chetty is the director.
very nice.
So I heard some good things about a film called Creator that's out there,
Okay.
and I've been reading some reviews. Also dealing with a young girl, which is an AI, kind of an AI. So I think people are beginning to incorporate, beginning to realize that this concept of AI is not so far away. That it's already happening. Not just algorithms, but companions. For
You see,
instance, yeah. So this is something that's going to
yeah.
change, keep evolving.
I should connect you with the hosts of Science Fiction Remnant. They are a great podcast, and uh, Robert, one of the main hosts, always talks about AI, artificial intelligence, and the major benefits that are going to happen with it, and he's just a big component about that. I would love to have you get connected with those hosts as well because the conversation you guys will have all about artificial intelligence would just be amazing. I'm still like a little kid when it comes to like artificial intelligence, where I'm like, oh wow, like my computer will talk to me, or I'm playing around with like Chat GPT whenever I do posts for Cinema Recall, and I say, here Chat GPT, write a quick promo for this episode, and it comes up with this like great notion right there. Like, holy crap, that's amazing. Or CGI work for movies, and the whole thing with the actors strike, and they're saying their likenesses being used without their permission, and like, can we do that to like dead
Exactly.
celebrities? Can
Yes.
we take
Yes.
their notions and do that? But there's also a lot of great, health benefits too with AI. Be able to help people who don't have the ability to move, and they're able to like communicate using AI, and yeah, it's just
Oh yes.
I'm very
I,
into.
Absolutely. I mean, again, we're not talking about becoming Luddites, but really
Hmm.
developing a working relationship with AI. And I think
Yeah,
people tend to uh, go overboards when it comes to any of these new trends, and not realizing that at the end of the day, they need to bring their humanity or their essence into that. Otherwise, the machine will tell you what to do. For instance,
hmm.
recently I came across an article that's saying now the new dating app is that it will just scan your face, and then based upon their face, then they will match you because based upon statistics with someone who's comparable. So there you have.
Just on your
Not
face.
even the looks anymore. It's just a scan, and they say, well, you have an 87% of chance of really, you know, having a good talk with such and such a person. And that's an
So
example of AI going way out of line.
oh
Like,
gosh,
it's not happening. Um, you
it
can't
used to be
just
you had to write a whole bunch of like questionnaires on your dating stuff, like who
exactly
you're attracted
like a
to
laundry
and what
list.
your job is.
What are the
Yeah.
things you like? What are the things you don't like? That match things you like. Eliminate the. It doesn't work like that. The human world is complicated, very complicated, and we can't just reduce it to one or two or three algorithms. And that's
Hmm.
something that unfortunately a lot of the younger generation seems to be overlooking. And I think that there is something in Philip K. Dick. There is an understanding that our humanity is very fragile, and the issues of being human can never be resolved entirely. Our state of that's part of being human. You can no
Hmm.
longer, and this idea that technology will just resolve that and pave the way for it's not. It's only going to lead to a disaster. And I think that's what our humanity understands, that we really need. What Philip K. Dick talks about, that we need to really understand that we're at the end of the day flawed beings. But what makes us special is our ability to learn from that and move forward.
Sure.
And technology is not going to just resolve that, because, like in Blade Runner, it might come a moment in the future where our robots are warmer than the humans. Our
I think the
robots.
fact that a lot of movies
Yeah.
now are sort of like not using AI as like a fear thing, and I'm going to compare two movies, like Ex Machina and Artifice Girl.
Oh yeah, that's
Ex
a great
Machina,
film.
Ex Machina, great movie with Daniel Gleason and Alicia Vikander. He plays a guy
Oh
who's
yeah, it's
testing
awesome.
a cyborg unit to see if the AI unit becomes more human and whatnot. And I love the ending of that, but it seems to be kind of a dark, cold ending to people. Artifice Girl kind of takes that same approach, but it's about AI coming into their own. Both characters are about AI units becoming their own persons, but I always feel like the Artifice Girl uh, does it in a way that's sort of like hopeful. Because when you watch Ex Machina,
Right.
to people that ending can seem kind of cold of what happens to the characters in that. Artifice Girl,
Yes,
it
yes.
feels more hopeful, and that's what I like
Artifice
comparing
Girl.
those.
Well, on that route, you might be familiar with Devs, Devs. That I think you can catch it on Hulu. That came out a few years ago, but by the same
Oh,
director, Alex Garland. Devs,
that
and
sounds so familiar.
it has to
I don't think I
reach a
saw
pearl
it.
where AI has reached the point where you can simulate all of reality, and we have the very chilling moments where you're gonna understand what this world is gonna feel like if we let the AI begin to simulate and pretend that it's reality. You can just download your consciousness into the mainframe. It runs with it, and it done in a way that's very non-judgmental. So at the end, you're not sure, do I really want to live in this virtual reality or not? He's not saying good or bad. It's just, but it's they're very chilling. It's called Devs, Devs, and the
Oh,
so I would, yeah,
yes,
I
this
think that,
I do remember the show. Yes, with Nick Offerman, and it's got the Carl Glusman from the Neon Demon and Gaspar Noé's Love. Yeah,
yeah.
I I do remember this. Yeah, that's a good one. I didn't think about that. Shoot, that's epic.
I mean,
Oh,
Alex Garland is great. He really is because he seems like a very much more above average in terms of the implications of this technology. I mean,
I would
it's
love
not
for him
just.
to do. Oh, sorry.
He's actually doing. He's done a couple one called Men. I'm not sure if it has any sci-fi involved, but we'll see. He
Oh,
could
I've
surprise
seen.
us.
Okay, I've seen Men. I forgot that was him that did that.
Oh, you saw it? Okay.
I do. Yeah, A24 movie. Yeah.
Like,
Yes, I forgot. Alice Garland did do that. Yep. Yep. Okay, I
it
do.
kind of went under
Uh,
the radar. I'm not sure how much attention it got, but that's one. And now the next one I think is next year dealing with. It takes place during the Civil War or something. I mean, it's.
okay.
I guess he's trying to go beyond the sci-fi orbit and explore different areas. Um,
I'm glad he does. I love this adaptation of Annihilation. Uh, didn't care so much
Annihilation.
for Men, but Annihilation was really good, and so
But
I'm
you know
always
what's really
intrigued.
good? Annihilation. There was a film that is much more metaphysical than night. It's called Stalker by Andrei Tarkovsky.
Tarkovsky.
Yes, I
Yes,
thought this is
the guy
very
who did.
very similar, except much more metaphysical, much more heady and brainy than. And he walked into this place that is essentially what the aliens came and they took off, and there were all kinds of strange phenomena taking place. And Stalker, and it's like a 3 hour long film. So
See,
it's
that's
very
See,
yeah.
my,
That
my
was that was a,
introduction to Solaris was the Steven Soderbergh remake of Solaris,
oh okay.
and
Well,
then I
maybe it'd
saw
be
the
better than.
Tarkovsky. Well, then I saw the
Yeah, I saw
Tarkovsky version,
the Tarkovsky
and
version. Yeah.
but I think I liked the Soderbergh version more than the Tarkovsky
Yeah,
version of
so did
Solaris.
I. I like that. Yeah, it was the Tarkovsky version. The set, I wasn't convinced by the set. Didn't look like a
Yeah,
spaceship at all.
no, not at
Uh,
all.
and now Solaris is based upon the works by Stanisław Lem, the Polish
Hmm.
sci-fi writer, who seemed to have a kind of a relationship with Philip K. Dick. I mean, he thought that Philip K. Dick one of the few American sci-fi writers that was really deep, metaphysical. And
Oh, sure.
and we done two festivals in Poland. Bless you. Two
Thank
festivals
you.
in Poland, Philip K. Dick festivals, and they're both well attended. People in France and in Poland really like it. For instance, we ran an ad today for the Philip K. Dick in France, and the engagement rate is right through the roof. They love
Oh,
Philip K.
beautiful.
Dick there. Because I think
Oh,
Philip K. Dick has more of a European. It has more of a his writing style is more of a European. Uh, like Flaubert, Proust, and although he was also influenced by H.P. Lovecraft, that's why a lot of people into H.P. Lovecraft also like Philip K. Dick. So Philip K. Dick was the hippie version, or you could say. One of them focused on mysterious monsters or cosmic horror, and that's H.P. Lovecraft, and Philip K. Dick was costed in multiple realities and strangeness, and the two of them kind of like had H.P.
oh, that's beautiful.
Lovecraft movies in our festival.
Oh, that's epic. Oh, one thing, Dan, I do want to ask you about if anyone wants to, because I know like a lot of my audience members, they don't live in London. I have a few that do, but anyone that wants to watch any movie from both the European Philip K. Dick Film Festival and the Psychedelic Film and Music Festival, is there a way people can check these flicks online or
Well,
stream into them somewhere?
yes, with the Psychedelic, we have an online version on
You
Sunday,
do.
October 22nd. So if you go to
Okay.
the website, and you just type in you go onto the website, and then in the website there will be a link to the online version. We're not showing we're basically not showing the features, but we're showing the shorts. So it's over
Oh, perfect.
35 shorts. So that's already there. So anyone can go and buy a ticket for the whole day, and
Oh, beautiful.
I think they're bound to find something good.
And
And
I
there'll be
promise
Q&A
I'll.
with some of the directors.
Oh, Q&As as well? Oh, very
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, well, definitely we're arranging Zoom. I mean, we're arranging Q&A with after the screenings with some of the directors in the program. They'll be
Perfect.
zooming in from France or from Germany, from wherever the film is, South Africa.
Right.
Now the PKD,
And
unfortunately, at this point we don't have access to that because a lot of the films that we're showing there still are in the festival circuit, and the
Sure.
filmmakers, from a geo-marketing point of view, want to keep it strictly to the Lille, northern France area. But as soon as we have something that we can share with others, we'll definitely let you know.
And I will post links on our website as well as other platforms about where you can find these other festivals. Look them up, look at what the shorts are. I went through a few of them. I'm like, yeah, I definitely want to watch that, or I definitely want to see that one. There was one called Chimera, U.S. film
Yes,
set in a not too
yes.
distant future. A VR life simulation junkie goes on a mission in reality to get a new dopamine game cartridge before she goes through happiness withdrawal. Just
Well,
stuff like
and that's
that
what's
was really
happening
kind of
today.
cool.
I mean, Chimera is just the next step. It's virtual reality, VR simulations. But today you can see that a lot of the young people are, especially young women in their early 20s, are reporting feelings of depression, suicide. And I think it's this excessive dependence on the phone, technology, that's causing some of these symptoms to emerge. There is no replacement for humanity, especially face-to-face interacting with others real time. I can understand during the pandemic where we're all on lockdown, but otherwise, I would encourage people to just meet people real life, and that trumps anything you'll find out your so-called friends on Facebook, because a lot of them are not even friends. Who the hell? Who
That's
knows
true.
who they are? So we really gotta be aware of that. But it's so easy to say, "Oh, I have 18,000 friends," but how many really will be with you when you need them? Maybe a handful if you're lucky. I mean, that's the way I see it. 18,000, and this is part of the dynamic. So we really need to encourage people to come together. That's why we do the festival. Come together in person if you can. because there's nothing that beats being in person, talking. The energy, the energetic transmission cannot be simulated. It's there and it's real. So
I tell you what, Dan, that psychedelic film and music festival sounds like one that I would love to come to next year or so. I would not have time to come to it this year, but next year, just because it feels like such a community event where people are talking to each other. Recently, I was at the Renaissance Festival, and everyone there was just very
that's
nice.
in
It's
London,
easy
right?
just to talk to everyone and communicate, and
right.
no one's just rushing to get to next stop, next stop. Everyone can kind of sit and talk and, you know, connect with each other. And I miss that, especially for being locked down for so long.
Right, and I have for those who are interested in attending, we have a special bonus.
Okay.
On Saturday between 11:30 and 1. I'll be, as I mentioned, I'm a practitioner. That is, I do during the day. I actually work as you could say, a coach or a therapist. I work with people who have PTSD or anxiety disorders and come up. So we're gonna do like a little ritual where it enables the person to start connecting with a better version of themselves or their future self.
Sure.
And that's free of charge. You can just sign up for that. And it'll be 90 minutes, and I'll do what I feel are good practices to really re-engage with our potential, with ourselves. And so I'm hoping that some people can take me up on that, and see already it's filling up fairly quickly. I think a lot of people realize they need that. So it's not just about watching films, but really getting people to help each other out and support each other, and especially during this time and day.
That's beautiful. Dan, before we go, right. I'm going to post the links for both the websites on our main page. If you're listening, you can go to Psychedelic Film and Music Festival.com. And then there's also the European Philip K. Dick Film Festival called the Philip K. Dick Film Festival.com. Go to those sites, see the features on them. Go watch the short films at the Psychedelic Film and Music Festival. Can people follow these on social media? Is there a social media platform that I can lead them to as well?
Oh, yeah. We have I think I can have Jonathan send you the links, but it's the Philip K. Dick Fest. Philip K. Dick Fest at Twitter. This Philip K. Dick Fest at Instagram. So that's a good way of following us. We can also call it the Philip K. Facebook, then the Philip K. Dick Film Festival. So there are three. Those are our main three. And of course, we have a YouTube channel called the Philip K. Dick Film Festival as well. And
gotcha.
So there are 4 ways where people can follow us. I would say Facebook is, for us, is more up. We update it more regularly. But as we get more pictures, we'll start posting them on Instagram. And then while I'm there in France, I'll actually see if I can start uploading some live videos to either Twitch or Facebook.
That's beautiful. Well, Dan, we're getting to the...
I'm sorry. And the same holds for the Psychedelic Festival. Those who want to follow us, it's easy to remember Psychedelic Fest, F-E-S-1. That's it, Psychedelic
1.
Fest, FES1, at Twitter, at Instagram, and the Facebook is Psychedelic Film Festival. Facebook.com/Psychedelic Film Festival.
All right. Keep a watch on our social media pages, because I will post links on there as well when this episode does post. We're getting to the end of our show. Thank you so much, Dan, for being a part of it. I learned so much about not only just the films on there, but the sort of like philosophy and learning things about connections and AI. I'm definitely going to forward your site and information to the Science Fiction Remnant podcast, if that's all right. I'll give your promoter that information as well, because that would be great, because they deal with stuff in sci-fi more than we do here at Cinema Recall. But if you're listening to us, thank you very much for joining us for this episode. Now, this part of the show, I gotta do this every episode. We gotta give a shout out to our Patreon supporters. Again, patreon.com/CinemaRecallPod. I'll be really brief with this right now. Rabbit Hole Podcast, thank you very much, Jason. Jeanette Miller-Mickenham at AKA Jeanette, thank you very much. I gotta thank Linda Castro from Bed Knobs and Broomflits. I gotta thank Donnie Roberts, formerly of Cage's Kiss, now writes the Deep Sea Anthologies. Thank you very much, Donnie. I gotta thank Matt and Ashley from Mashley at the Movies. I gotta thank our former guitar player, Patreon member right now, Harvey Andrus. Thank you very much, Harvey. And lastly, I gotta thank Jen McQuaid from Shot and Applaud. Thank you very much, our Patreon users, because you are gonna get this episode earlier than anyone else does, so really appreciate the support. And then for all the listeners out there, thank you very much for checking out the Cinema Recall podcast and supporting us. We're going to be back towards the end of October with our look at the Halloween franchise, so look for that episode coming out here in next week, around the same week of Halloween. Big thank you to Dan, Abella, thank you very much, Dan, for coming on to Cinema Recall Podcast. Hope you'll come back again. I am very intrigued to check out that Psychedelic Film and Music Festival in later years, because that just sounds such like a great experience to witness, and I'm so excited.
Well, thank you for having me, Vern, and I look forward to future collaborations.
Sounds good, man. Thank you very much.
Have a good one.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good day.
Yay! Stop.